Hello, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and this is episode 39 of my Billions and Billions challenge. In today's episode, I will be diving back into the mod NuclearCraft with the fission reactors once again, but today I am going to be setting up a system to reprocess the old fuels that I used in my older NuclearCraft reactors, so let's get started. The first thing that I want to mention is that this area here has 4 towers that I built in between episodes, and they actually have a shared basement. I should also mention exactly where I'm at on my map. So over here on the left side of the screen where my mouse is circling, that's my main base. Over here on the right hand portion of the screen where my mouse is circling is where this new area is built. So let's go down into the basement of this first building here. I do have 2 NuclearCraft fission reactors built, but they are completely empty at this point. Nothing's inside, no fuel, no nothing. So the basement that I have for these 4 buildings are actually connected, and as you can see, they are denoted by what color blocks they have in the doorways here. So right now I know I'm in the emerald building, now I'm in the gold building, now I'm in the iron building. So that's kind of a cool little way that I came up with to tell me exactly which building I'm in at any given time, should I happen to lose track of that. So the first thing that I'm going to do today is I'm going to set up an isotope separator system to actually break down some of the old fuels that I have. So I obviously have built a TBU reactor in the past, so I do have a lot of the depleted TBU fuel. So let's take a look at that, and when I use the fuel reprocessor, I will get some uranium-233, 235, and then neptunium-236 and 237. I also have some of the LEU-235 fuel, so let's take a look at that. Not the 233, it's the 235. So I will also be getting some uranium-238, some neptunium-237 once again, and then plutonium-239 and 241. So what I have set up in this building and the other buildings as well is I actually have a giant capacitor at this base as well, like I have at many of my other bases. And if we click on it right here, it does have some RF in it, and that's because on top of these buildings here, I do have solar panels, and they are all connected to the same giant capacitor. So if I come over here, you'll see that I have, that much, and then if we come over here, it's the exact same capacitor. It's just a very, very large capacitor that is shared between this entire base. So let's go back down here, and let's actually start setting things up at this point. So I do have a capacitor ran around the room. It's over here as well as maybe along the back here. So let's get started. Let's set up the 5 isotope separators that I have with me. So let's put those here, here, and here, and here. So I also have some upgrades that I need to grab for them. So let me type in upgrade here. I want to grab all of these upgrades. So what I'm going to do with each of the isotope separators here is I'm going to give them 64 speed upgrades and 64 energy upgrades so that they will be able to process things very, very quickly. So let's go ahead and do that for all 5 of these machines here because I do want them to run very, very quickly. I do have a humongous backlog of items from my old NuclearCraft reactors. So I think I have something like a total of 1.5 million of these depleted fuel cells here. So I'm not sure how much I have of each, but together it makes about 1.5 million. So what I'm going to do now is let's go ahead and set up some item conduit here. So what I'm going to do is this is going to be extract on green. So this will be always on, and then this will be insert on green, and then extract on, let's go with the red. And I don't know, I have everything, I have some notes down here how I want everything to be. So I do need to, oh, that's because I have isotope separators, not fuel reprocessors. That's my bad. That was really dumb. So what I need to do is I actually need to go back to my home base real fast and get those fuel reprocessors. So I might not have that automated right now. So let's actually take a look. So yeah, I have over 1.5 million together. So I have almost 900,000 and then 700,000 here. So let's go for the fuel reprocessor. Okay, I do have these automated. I don't know why I didn't have them. I don't know why I grabbed the isotope separators instead. But hopefully this doesn't take too long to make. It just looks like I'm going to be waiting on some ferroboron alloy. But that shouldn't take too long at all. So let's go ahead and grab these. There we go. And so let's go back to the NuclearCraft base here. Sorry if it picked up a little bit of stutter after I teleported there. But let's go ahead and grab these upgrades back out because I need those to be in the proper machines and not in the isotope separators. Like I said, I don't know why I did that. So let's just knock these out. So the reason why the items weren't going into the isotope separators because the isotope separators can't actually accept those items. But this can. So there we go. So we're going to get our stuff and it's quickly going to stop because these items have nowhere to go. So I can fix that here in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and just finish upgrading everything. And actually I do want to go ahead and get rid of these isotope separators here because they are worthless to me. And then let's come back over here. And okay, I do have the filters with me. And let's go ahead and set up the rest of the conduit over here. So actually I should have a conduit probe here. And these are always nice to have when dealing with item conduits. And I'm going to be dealing with item conduits quite a bit today. So let's go ahead and get all of these guys running as well. I do want to add some speed upgrades to this item conduit here to make it work a little bit faster. So that's fantastic. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to set up a bunch of crafters along the back wall of this building here. And like I said before, I do have capacitors back here, so I just simply need to set the crafters on top of them, and they should be able to receive power. So there we go. They are receiving power. So what I'm going to do with these crafters is I'm going to craft the larger variants of all of the different isotopes I'm going to be gathering. So for example, I'm going to be crafting the tiny uranium-238 into larger uranium-238, the neptunium-237, plutonium-239, and 241. So I actually kind of have a sequence of how I want to do this, and actually, to be honest, I'm not sure if you can get little uranium-235. Let me see here as the tiny little lumps here. With the fuel reprocessor, you can. Okay. Oh, okay, I see what happened here. So one thing I do want to do is I do want to make sure that I have some of the TBU fuel that is reprocessed here. So all of these are the LEU. So let me grab some TBU. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to force it to actually reprocess that so I can grab all of the different isotopes here. There we go. Okay, so let's actually get rid of the depleted uranium-2 or depleted LEU fuel that I had there. So what I'm going to do here is the uranium-235, or not 235, the 233 rather. So I'm actually going to try to do things in a kind of ordered way. So the first one will be uranium-233, second one will be uranium-235, third one will be the uranium-238, and then I'll go on to the neptunium, which would be 236 and 237, and then the plutonium, which would be 238, 239, 241, 240, and 242, I think is the final plutonium. And that'll be all of the stuff today. I don't actually have plutonium-238 today, or 242, but I think I have most everything else. So let's get to it. The uranium, actually, you know what I want to do is I want to set up some filters first. So these are going to be in on red, and they are going to be out on, let me see here. Let's do brown. That'll work. So in on red, out on brown, they do need to be always active. So let's go ahead and configure these bad boys. Do need to copy that and then just paste this across. So what we're going to do is let's just go ahead and set all of this item conduit while we're here. That way we can do we can configure it all as well. Okay, so on the insert, let's go ahead and start to add filters. So this will be uranium-233, so I should have some of that somewhere. There we go, the uranium-233. Now I can get rid of that, and we can also go ahead and set the pattern. All the patterns are going to be the same. They're just a 9x9 grid of whatever isotope I have. So let's go ahead and hit apply, so that's cool. That's the uranium-235, and let's actually go ahead and grab that. And so this will be the uranium-235, and I think I just said 235. I meant 233. Sorry about that. So uranium-235 is here. Let's set the pattern. And I don't need to hit the remember key here like I've done in the past with these crafters, because each crafter is only going to be able to accept one item at a time anyways, so it's not going to be a problem. One thing I do want to do real fast is get rid of the extra crafters I have with me, because I don't need them. So let's go ahead and continue here with the uranium-238. And let's go ahead and just dump all of this in here and then set this this pattern. Let's grab some of this uranium-238. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the neptunium and plutonium off camera. I'm going to keep things in order, and once I have all of the patterns set and all of the filters set as well, I will be right back. So I have all of the crafters set up, and as you can see, I now have the larger variants of these different isotopes of plutonium, uranium, and neptunium. So the next thing that I need to do is simply to hook up the item conduit here, and then the item should start flowing over, theoretically. And let's see here. We are starting to get things. So one thing I do need to do is I do need to insert some speed upgrades here. So let's go ahead and let's do 7 apiece. That should be half stack. It should be able to move half stacks at a time if I do 7 apiece. And that should be plenty, I think. So let's actually take a gander. Okay, you know what? It would benefit if I just fill it. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill these things up. It's very apparent that because they produce so many of the little isotopes, it does definitely benefit to have it as fast as possible. So I do have this sped up as much as possible, so that's cool. So we should have a lot of the larger variants made up at this point, so that's pretty cool. Already filled up of uranium-238. So the next thing I want to do is I want to set up some black hole units, and they are going to be, each black hole unit will be dedicated to a different isotope here. So once again, I'm going to fill this across the room here, and I actually need to grab some more black hole units, which I have over here, so I should have enough anyways. So let's go ahead and grab those. Try to run these all across the room here. Oh, that works out perfect. So that's fantastic. So let's grab the item conduit here and let's run this across. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up each black hole unit to be able to accept only one of the different isotopes here. So this is actually going to be really, really easy to set these up because I already have the isotopes with me and they're in order. So that's cool. So this is 238. Oh, whoops. Didn't mean to throw that. And this is the neptunium, the first neptunium, which would be 236. This is second neptunium, which is 237. This one is actually going to be dedicated to plutonium-238, which I don't have with me. So the next one is, and let's go ahead and throw in a filter anyways. And I actually can go ahead and set up that filter, because the cool thing about the item filters from Ender.io is you can actually configure them using JEI here. So this will be plutonium-238. This will be plutonium-239. There is no plutonium-240, so the next one is 241. There we go. So everything should be all set up. So the next thing I need to do is I actually need to configure this properly. So this needs to be insert on brown. So let's go ahead and do that. And then the extract will be on, let's say, purple. Yes, purple. So it'll be insert on brown, extract on purple, and the purple will be always on. So let's go ahead and use the conduit probes here to copy that and then paste this across. And the filter settings should stay as they were, I believe. I definitely need to double check those filters that they're not being reconfigured by this conduit probe, and it does not look like they are. So that's cool. One thing I will need to do is, you know, I'm not going to configure the rest of these because I don't have filters in them and they're not configured anyways. So all of the ones that I need are configured, and that's all I'm going to mess with right now. In the future, should I need to reprocess more things, I will need to add more filters, and I will need to configure the crafters as well. Yeah, I didn't mean for that to happen on these crafters. I shouldn't have configured the rest of the crafters, to be honest. So actually, let's go ahead and deconfigure these. So I'm going to, you know what, the damage is already done. I'm not going to worry about it. They're already filled with stuff they can't use. So the next step in this process is I'm going to set down more crafters. And I'm actually going to start making some different fuels here. So let's grab the crafters again. And I honestly don't need that many. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is... Do I actually have this across the room? I do. I already configured that. That's cool. I forgot that I had done this. But anyways, these crafters also have a capacitor underneath them. I think all the way across the room. Cool. Totally forgot I did that. So apparently I planned pretty well. So these crafters are going to be to make all of the different fuels that I might need. So let's go ahead and not tell this to... Actually, these will need filters, but actually, what's the first fuel I'm going to make? I think it's going to be an LEU 233. So let's take a look at that fuel. LEU 233. So the LEU 233 fuel produces 60 heat per tick and 144 RF per tick. For reference, let's take a look at the LEU 235 fuel, which is a fuel I've been using. It's 50 heat per tick, which is what, 10 less, and 120 RF per tick, which is 24 less. So the fuel I'm going to be making here is just a little bit hotter and just a little bit produces just a little bit more fuel than the LEU 235 fuel I've been using in some of my old reactors. So what I need to do now is I need to edit the filter settings here to accept uranium 233 and uranium 238. But before I do anything, I do want to grab some of these guys, and I do want to do some filter shenanigans here. Or not filter shenanigans, but shenanigans dedicating a certain capacity to the 233, and then the rest of it can be 235. So let's hit the remember key here, and then the fuel that I want to make is 1 part of the 233, and then 8 parts of the 238. Yes. So let's go ahead and start making some of that. One thing I can do is I can actually get rid of all of these things here. I don't need them anymore. This should be 239. That's 241. So I do need to set this up to be what? Insert on brown. And no. Insert on purple, and then let's say extract on... Let's do blue. So extract on blue. This will be always on. And then this will be insert on purple. So we should start seeing uranium 233 and uranium 238 flow into here. At some point, I might want to add some speed upgrades to some of these item conduits here. They're extract points. But for right now, I'm not going to worry about it. So let's not grab any of that fuel for right now. Let's actually build some item conduit here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to connect to the reactors down here. And I actually need some more item conduit here. So let's grab some. And I think this isn't going to look the best in the world, but I'm just going to run this kind of across the top here. The reactors upstairs are connected to a capacitor, so once they are turned on, they will be able to produce energy directly for the capacitor that it's hooked up to. However, the capacitor is not hooked up to any means of resource generation at this point. It will be in the future. So let's just go ahead and drop that down right there. Yeah, it's a little bit messy, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is, this is extract on blue. So what we need to do up here is I'm going to put in a filter. And let's go ahead and configure it to only be able to hold this LEU 233 fuel. So whitelist the LEU 233. And then we can go ahead and set this to be blue. And I think I ran right past it. Yep, insert on blue. And then I am going to be extracting on green so that the used fuel will go back into these fuel reprocessors. Now, these fuel reprocessors are busy at the moment going through my backlog. But at some point in the nearest future, at least hopefully, they will be through that backlog. And then the items will be able to flow out of the reactors and back into the fuel reprocessors. Well, that's the hope anyways. Okay, so let's... Actually, I'm not sure if I have any levers, and if I don't have any levers, I will be able to make some, because they're wood and stone. Wood and cobblestone, which I already have. So let's actually... Yeah, let's go ahead and make some levers here. So, levers, like I said, are super easy to make. I do want to make 2 of them, that way I can put levers on the reactors. And I'm going to go ahead and set up one of these reactors. Let's go ahead and set up this reactor today. So what I need to grab are some coolers, some fuel cells, and maybe some graphite as well. Not really sure about that one. So let's go ahead and get rid of some stuff we don't need. Okay, so this reactor should be the one hooked up. If I did things right. So, yeah, I can get rid of most everything I have in my inventory at this point. To grab the things I actually need at this point. So let's go ahead and... I do need to keep these with me. I do want these Endurium coolers. In fact, they're actually the first coolers I'm going to be inserting. And then... the coolers. Duh, they're right in front of my face. I probably won't need graphite blocks. And if I do, I won't need very many. So let's grab the lapis coolers, the reactor cells, and then the tin coolers as well. So I shouldn't actually need that many cryotherm coolers. I actually might need another. You know what? I probably don't need that many reactor cells. And then I do want to grab a wand. So like I said, I probably don't need those graphite blocks. So let's go ahead and start setting up this fission reactor. So if you haven't seen the previous episode where I designed a reactor, and I actually did kind of a poor job in that episode. I feel kind of bad about that, but I have a much better design, and I have a design in mind. So along the back wall here, we're actually going to be kind of interchanging the reactor cells along with the cryotherm coolers. So on the back wall, if you're not familiar with the NuclearCraft rules for the coolers, they all have different rules for where these coolers can be placed, and they all have different cooling rates, or some of them have different cooling rates. So for example, the lapis cooler must be adjacent to at least one reactor cell, which is where the fuel is actually burned, and then one reactor casing, which is the exterior of the reactor. And then the cryotherm coolers need to be adjacent to at least 2 reactor cells. I usually use them between reactor cells, but they can be just any place adjacent. So let's go ahead and just continue the pattern, even though this reactor is actually one shorter than I would like it to be. And then in the spaces between the lapis coolers, we're going to have tin coolers. And actually, I kind of screwed this up. I didn't screw it up, I just didn't add as many blocks as I should have. I need more lapis blocks. Where I have the holes along the back wall, I'm going to add more of the lapis coolers. Except along the sides. So the cool thing about the Draconic Evolution armor is it allows me to hover pretty easily. So that's nice in a situation like this. So let's go ahead and grab some reactor cells, and as well as some cryotherm coolers, and then maybe my wand, because the wand will be useful here in a second. So the reactor cells go wherever I have the lapis blocks, and then the cryotherm coolers go where I have the 10 blocks. So actually this might be easier if I do something like this. And yep, screwed that up. There we go. Now we're in a rhythm. Okay. I'm pretty sure that all of these blocks are valid and where they need to be. The reason why I placed the Enderium coolers first is because their rule is they need to be touching 3 of the reactor casings, which means they need to be in the corners of the reactor. That's the only place that they're valid. But they are very good coolers, so I like to use them. Okay, so this should be the second to last layer here. Whoops, that is invalid. That is not what I wanted. Okay, so the reason why this wand is going to be useful, and actually, I have one more thing I need to do before I need to use the wand. I need to go ahead and place the outer ring. And actually, there won't be an outer ring along the top, but there will be an outer ring along the sides and the bottom. Actually, I hope that doesn't cause problems for my design that I don't have an outer ring on the top, because that would actually provide a little extra cooling. And these or the fuel I'm using in this reactor is just a little bit hotter than the fuel I've been using for my other reactors. So what I'm going to do now is let's go ahead and pull this design kind of across the room. And actually, it's going to be pretty easy for the rest of it. However, along the walls here, I need to do this manually. The interior of the reactor, I'm actually going to be able to use this diamond wand here to pull it across very, very easily. And that was not meant to go there. There we go, better. And I can't use the tin coolers in the corner because they need to be adjacent to 2 lapis coolers along the same axis, which means I cannot use anything in the corners, unfortunately. There are some things I could do with the little bit of space that I'm going to have here that is going to be empty, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. If I actually have issues with running just a little bit too hot, there's something I can do, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Okay, so let's grab our wand, and we actually have it set in the correct mode here, and that is, yeah, so let's just go ahead and pull this. So there we go, we pulled the design clear across the room. What I'm going to do real fast is let's go ahead and seal up the reactor and see if I'm running too hot, too cool, or what. Okay, so actually we're running a little bit cool. And the thing is, I'm not actually done. You know what? I can be done. What I'm going to do, I think, is I'm just going to extend this all the way to the back wall and hope I'm not running too hot at that point. Normally on the back wall, I'd have this back wall the same as the front wall there, but because I am significantly cooler than I need to be at this point, I'm just going to hope that it's going to run cool enough if I just pull this design clear to the wall here. Okay, so let's do this side. And then now let's do the, okay, make sure I have enough of the cooler blocks. I do, I definitely do. And then the reactor blocks, and then let's go ahead and seal this up. Okay, so we're running a little bit hot here. And you know what? I am going to use that dead space. I think I can make use of that dead space here. So I have dead space along the bottom of the reactor here. And let me see here. This needs to be adjacent to at least 1 reactor cell and 1 reactor casing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stick 2 of these along with the reactor cell. That should actually cool down the reactor just a little bit, and it did. Maybe by not enough, though. Because I actually have 3 more sections to do that to. No, I don't. Because I don't have the upper portion there. totally forgot about that. I do have this portion over here, though. So we are going to need to do something else to cool it down just a little bit further. But this will get us just a little bit closer here. So we do want the heat number to be negative or 0. 0 or negative. That's what we're aiming for. So some of the things we can do here are, instead of having a few of these fuel cell or reactor cells rather along the edge here, one thing we can do is get rid of a few of them. So let's get rid of this guy and put lapis coolers. And then let's go ahead and seal this back up. This should be really, really close, and I did not mean to do that. So yeah, like I said, really, really close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one more random reactor cell and replace it with a lapis cooler, and that will definitely get me under the threshold. So yeah. So at this point, I can turn this reactor on, and it will provide me with 72,000 RF per tick, which is pretty good. And it will be using this LEU 233 fuel that I'm making here at this base. So that's pretty cool as well. So I do need to make sure that this 233 fuel is actually making its way into the reactor. And I'm not sure if it is not. So I might need to do something about that. Okay, so I think I know what the problem is. And it's my own mistake here. So actually, I believe that this fission reactor port is invalid on the bottom. I think it needs to be on the sides. So let's go ahead and grab it. So I'm actually going to grab both of them. Might as well replace both of them while I can. So let me see here. Yeah, it cannot be on the top or bottom. Maybe I should read a little bit, but it says it right there. It can't be on the top or bottom. I knew something was going on earlier, but I didn't want to mention it until I actually figured out exactly what. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and place this right here. I think will be a fine spot for it. And right here. And let's go ahead and punch a hole in the floor here and here. Okay, so that's not a good spot to punch a hole in the floor. Actually, no spot over here is a good spot to punch a hole in the floor. And I can actually change that. So what I'm going to need to do is grab some capacitor blocks. And I actually only need 2 of them, but I want to grab the entire stack to prevent my capacitor and my inventory from actually accidentally charging them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little hole in the floor here. I'm going to grab my crescent hammer. I'm actually going to remove this block, this capacitor block. And then I am going to replace those capacitor blocks by doing that. So basically I just make the capacitor kind of run around this block so that I can run an item conduit through that block space. So let's go ahead and add this fission reactor port. And then I should have 2 of the fission reactor casings that I will need to put on the bottom sides of these reactors. So let's go ahead and try to tidy up my inventory just a little bit. Because it's kind of a mess. And let's get rid of a bunch of stuff I don't need. Which is pretty much everything at this point. I do need item conduit. And then I don't need that anymore. And then some facades. But I think that's just about it. And I'm just about ready to wrap up the episode. So let's go ahead and tear up this item conduit here because I don't need it right there. I didn't mean to do that. Whoops. So put you back. Go back. Okay, so let's be a little bit more careful here. Not rip up my capacitors. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to run the item conduits over. And let's actually grab some of these fuel cells here. Okay, so I need to actually the filters keep their settings, I believe. So I didn't need to grab those. Why is that being weird? Because it wasn't actually there. That's why it was being weird. So this will need to be extract on the green channel and insert on blue, I believe. Yes, blue. And that's all good, so we should be able to hook this up. And then this reactor should start getting the fuel, and you can see that happening there, so that's cool. Let's go ahead and excuse me. Let's go ahead and turn on the reactor. It will eventually stop because it will not have anywhere to put the depleted fuel. However, like I said, at some point in the near future, these fuel reprocessors should run through my backlog of depleted fuel, and then it will be able to grab the depleted fuel out of this reactor and actually reprocess it. But for right now, this reactor isn't really powering anything other than the machines down here anyways, so it's not really a big deal. So I think that is a pretty good stopping point for today's episode. So in today's episode, I set up this system in this basement here. Basically what it will do is it will reprocess my old fuels that I've used in my NuclearCraft fission reactors before into their separate components. It will separate them. It will craft them into their bigger components. It will put the bigger components in these black hole units, and then in the future I will be able to make lots of different fuels down here using the components of the old depleted fuel cells that I have from all of my NuclearCraft reactors. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. This base is going to be able to create a lot of power. I have space for six nuclear reactors per building, and I have 4 buildings, so I have space for 24 nuclear reactors that will produce approximately the same amount of power as this reactor right here. So that's going to be pretty cool. So anyways, if you liked today's episode, feel free to drop a like down below, and if you like watching automation type stuff in modern Minecraft, definitely consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Anyways, signing off, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and I will see you next time.